Welcome to the Memorizing Pharmacology podcast. I'm Tony Guerra, pharmacist and author of the Memorizing Pharmacology book series, bringing you mnemonics, cases, and advice for succeeding in pharmacology. Sign up for the email list at memorizingpharm.com to get your free Suffixes cheat sheet or find our mobile-friendly, self-paced online pharmacology review course at residency.teachable.com/p/mobile. Let's get started with the show.
Okay, we're going to begin a three-part series on the immune system, and we're going to use the same whiteboard for these three episodes. They're just long, so I wanted to break it up a little bit. But you can still find the free JPEG of the drawing pharmacology at memorizingpharm, that's pharm.com/drawing, DRAWING, PHARM4. And we'll use this one for the next three. Then we'll go to some HIV pharmacology, and then we'll move on to neuro.
And today we're going to be going over antibiotics. So kind of breaking down all the different antibiotics into their different mechanisms of action. And then at the end, we'll be focusing on time versus concentration dependent and static versus cidal as well. So really the first category that I broke everything down to is going to be inhibiting cell wall synthesis. And these can be broken down into our beta-lactams, our glycopeptides, and our lipoglycopeptides. So first, starting off with our beta-lactams, we have three different types of penicillins. We have just our regular penicillins, and how I remember these is G and IV, it kind of rhymes, GIV, and then you have penicillin VK, which sounds it just sounds harsh, so I think oral because of the sound that it makes. And then we have our aminopenicillins, which goes into amoxicillin or moxitag and ampicillin. And because they're aminopenicillins, they both start with that A, is how I remember that as well. Then we have our penicillinase-resistant penicillins, so our methicillin, napcillin, and oxacillin. And how I remember these three is methicillin is, we think of methicillin when we're thinking of methicillin-sensitive Staph aureus. So that's a specific type of bacteria that we're treating. So then we have our napcillin and our oxacillin. So these kind of go together in the sense that one of them will be, one's the way that we classify it, one's one that we use to actually see if the antibiotic is, or excuse me, if the bacteria is resistant, and then the third one is the one that we actually use to treat. So that's how those three kind of go together. So those are our three different penicillins that we have. Then we move into our cephalosporins, and there's 5 different generations of our cephalosporins. So I kind of broke these down, and I like to draw out this little picture on the side too. It can be thought of as like plus, minus, plus. So, and that's the spectrum of the gram coverage that these antibiotics have. So the first generation are going to have a lot of gram-positive coverage, and the 5th generation are going to have a lot of gram-positive coverage as well. And then there's going to be a varying coverage in the middle, but the highest peak of gram-negative coverage is going to be generation 4 with our cefepime. So the way that I like to remember these, so our first generation, we have cephalexin and cefazolin, and I like to remember the "in" at the ending. So the way that these are going to differ are going to be in the administration. So cephalexin is going to be an oral medication, and then cefazolin is going to be an IV medication. So the way that it goes in is going to differ between those two. Then we have our second generation, which is cefprozil and cefaclor. And then our third generation, we have cefdinir, ceftazidime, and ceftaxime and ceftazidime. Yep, are 3. And then there's also another one, ceftriaxone, which I just didn't include because of spacing issues on the board here. Then our 4th generation, the main one that we're going to focus on is going to be cefepime. And then the last one is ceftaroline. Then we move down into our carbapenems here, and mainly these are going to be used for our ESBL, or our extended spectrum beta-lactamase producers. So these are going to have really broad spectrum coverage antibiotics. So these aren't going to typically be used that often unless we're really concerned about resistance issues. And the way that I like to remember these are, I just realized that it spells out DIME, the first initials of all the medications. So we have, these are going to be our penums. So doropenem, imipenem, mirapenem, and ertapenem. And then our 2 vowels are the ones that I really underlined in terms of differences between the two. So our imipenem, we worry about seizure side effects with this specific medication. And then ertapenem is going to differ between the D, I, and M in terms of its coverage. This is going to be a little bit less specific because it doesn't cover a specific bacteria called Pseudomonas. So that's how ertapenem is a little bit different. And then our last beta-lactam is going to be our monobactam, and that's going to be aztreonam. And the main difference with this medication is all of these medications really can cause some hypersensitivity reactions, and aztreonam isn't going to have any cross-reactivity with any of the above medications. So this can be used for patients that you're really concerned about having some of that cross-reactivity. Okay, then we move into our glycopeptide, specifically vancomycin. And this, I like to think of red man syndrome as kind of a side effect of this medication. So we like to think of the flushing, and it's also severely nephrotoxic. So we worry about patients that have declined kidney function as well. And then the last cell wall synthesis medication that we'll focus on is going to be the lipoglycopeptides. And these are going to be our avancins. So again, this spells out DOT is the way that I like to remember it. So we have delbavancin, oritavancin, and telavancin. And again, we're going to worry about the nephrotoxicity with these medications as well.
Thanks for listening to the Memorizing Pharmacology podcast. You can find episodes, cheat sheets, and more at memorizingpharm.com. Again, you can sign up for the email list at memorizingpharm.com to get your free Suffixes cheat sheet or find our mobile-friendly, self-paced online pharmacology review course at residency.teachable.com/p/mobile. Thanks again for listening.